Turn our focus now to Africa Diaspora Bonds. As African governments confront rising public debt and tighter access to conventional financing, attention is now turning once again to alternative sources of development capital. A new policy paper by the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom examines whether diaspora bonds could just offer a viable way to mobilize Africa's vast diaspora savings for long-term development, including infrastructure as well as entrepreneurship. To help us unpack this a little bit further this afternoon, to look at the findings as well as the implications of this publication, we're joined by Alexandra Heldt, West Africa Director at the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom, who led the work on the policy paper Diaspora Bonds, Unlocking Africa's Diaspora Capital for Development. And it draws on discussions from a high-level liberal forum held in Abidjan in September of 2025. A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Yes, hello, Thami Ngubeni. Thank you for having me, and a big hello from Senegal.
Oh, great to have you with us. So help us explore how diaspora bonds could fit into Africa's development finance landscape. And maybe if you could touch on the type of conditions that are required for these type of bonds to actually succeed, and just give us a good opportunities versus risks for government and the diaspora investors alike.
Yes, I mean, with pleasure. We have 2 hours or 3 hours for that.
Look, I trust your editing skills, so I trust you'll keep this in a good minute and a half.
Okay, good. Thank you. I will do my very best. So yes, indeed, we are facing in Africa a change of landscape, and not only because the world order is changing, also we feel that politically and financially, it's quite a very interesting moment. Africa is gaining in self-confidence and in recognition of its own wealth and resources, But there is a but, of course. Having said that, Africa has persisting difficulties to position itself on the global market. So we have different reasons why that is so. But we, as the Friedrich Naumann Foundation, decided to have a look at it and to see whether we can find other tools that would help Africa gain in strength and be more present actually on the global market. And one of these tools could actually be to help and ease financing the African economies would be these diaspora bonds. They are a tool of indigenous financing, but what we thought would be even more interesting about them is that they are first and for all an instrument that we have called a financial and emotional brain gain for Africa. Because of course you have the financial side, but you have also this emotional side that differentiate this tool from other finance tools that we have. Why? Because it's actually raising enthusiasm, calling for patriotism, as they said here in Senegal when they were launching their last diaspora bonds call actually last summer. They were really emphasizing this emotional bonding and ties that exist between natives living abroad and their actual countries of origin. And this is what makes diaspora bonds interesting, because it's not only a financial tool, but it is also an emotional tool.
And if you look, Alexandra, at the amounts that expats are sending back home, to their homelands, wherever it is on the continent that they may be. I mean, the remittance to Africa exceeded $100 billion in 2024. And those are not small amounts. But the main question is, what are the practical mechanisms that governments can use to channel at least a portion of those funds, which are really consumption focused most of the times? How can those then be channeled into productive investments through these diaspora bonds?
Diaspora bonds are remittances. I agree, are actually raising, and they have actually always existed. So this is not in itself; it's not new, and even the diaspora bonds are not new as a tool. What would be interesting is to focus via these diaspora bonds not only on individual needs of individual villages somewhere remote, helping the family to raise the kids. Or no, the idea of diaspora bonds raised from the state are really to be an important component of the economy of the country in itself, which means that these diaspora bonds would be much more invested into public-private, also private projects that would help the state, help the country gain in mobility, gain in infrastructure, gain in attractivity on the global market. Actually, this is always the same aim. Actually, it's only different ways of getting there. Right. And so it is. What is very important is that the investor and the state and the project or the product in itself are in a close relationship, and that there is an environment of trust. And this is where the state really needs to do its homework, and that is sometimes also the problem in a few states, that we have this will of gaining diaspora bonds, but we don't always have the will of being completely transparent, and you will not find any investor. He may be as close to his country than it can be, but still, if there is not this environment of trust, of traceability, of transparency, then these calls will not really be successful, but they are actually very successful. As you said before.
I'd like us for a moment, Alexandra, before we move on, just to, as you mentioned, these are not new. They've been successfully implemented in countries like Israel, India, Ethiopia now with the Grand Renaissance, Ethiopian dam, Nigeria as well. But what are the institutional and governance factors that have proven most critical in building that trust that you speak of among diaspora investors? What did Ethiopia, for example, get right?
Ethiopia was actually making this call for, in a way, for patriotism and for it is actually also arriving in or happening in a moment, in a time where in Africa, east as west as everywhere, you have this focus, more focus on its own strength, its own resources, may it be water, may it be electricity, may it be other things. And you have this, you have attractive products. You have really attractive products, and I think that it is really also a question of making them visible and make them attractive to investors who want to help a state like Ethiopia become independent on the energy side, for example, or and who want to build, to be part of this building of a state or of a national economy. So we have different in every country you just named. We have different ways also of gaining these investments. But the main thing is that you really manage to make it traceable and trustful.
And
this is really the thing that we realized.
And it really does boil down to that. Alexandra, thank you so much for your time and your insight this afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's Miss Alexandra Heldt, West Africa Director at the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom.